I'm not going to lie that I am concerned on us having a non-business friendly Chancellor. That doesn't mean Ed Miliband won't be business friendly. So whoever comes into play, the only way out of this isn't by dividing the pie by a more sort of equal basis. It's by growing the pie. We've got to make sure the economy grows, and in the process that business drives that economy and drives the purses and the wallets of each person working for each business.
We're used to the concept of approval ratings for politicians. Keir Starmer is on -46, for example. Many more of us disapprove than approve. Something similar is done for the economy. The Institute of Directors asked business leaders how optimistic they are about the UK economy and their own organisation over the next 12 months. The Institute takes the pessimistic away from the optimistic, and news just out this month, they get a figure of -61. So far more pessimistic than optimistic. That's down 8 points from last month. The IOD says the rising costs from the war in Iran is a major factor, but it also says confidence among business leaders is likely to have taken a knock as a result of the impending change in Prime Minister. So why are business leaders feeling so grim? We can ask one of the UK's most important business leaders, Steve Rigby. He's the CEO of Rigby Group, one of the UK's largest privately owned companies with interests in tech, airports and real estate. He joins us now. Morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
How confident do you feel at the minute?
I think I'm a little bit optimistic, if I'm honest with you. I think this week's announcements from Burnham were a sign that potentially things are going to turn. There's no doubt the actions of this government have been quite detrimental to business confidence and certainly around employment taxes. So if we are going to see some more stability, I think this IOD data is obviously looking backwards at least a month in terms of sentiment, but I am a bit more optimistic that we could have a change on the horizon.
Why do you think Burnham will be any better than Starmer?
I think actually one of the key decisions we've got here is who is the Chancellor. So, but Burnham himself, I think, is a proven entity. I do believe that the region's the powerhouse of our economy. Doesn't mean that London doesn't play a critical role, but I think he has demonstrated a clear agenda in Manchester that's worked. And when all of us visit Manchester, I'm sure, and you don't just hear it, you see it in building new starts, in the change in the city that's happening. So if we can get some of that to move in the economy, then great. The Chancellor is key, and I think the next few weeks, taking his time on that selection is critical. We really need a pro-business Chancellor in place. That's really quite critical for this next stage.
Do you believe that pro-business Chancellor might be one Miliband?
To comment on who coming.
But you're
through.
clearly worried about it. I only asked the question because you clearly are worried about it. I wonder if there's a Miliband worry nagging at your mind there.
I'm not going to lie that I am concerned on us having a non-business friendly Chancellor. That doesn't mean Ed Miliband won't be business friendly. So whoever comes into play, the only way out of this isn't by dividing the pie by a more sort of equal basis. It's by growing the pie. We've got to make sure the economy grows, and in the process that business drives that economy and drives the purses and the wallets of each person working for each business.
But they've never done that. What I find so striking about that is that growth is the answer to everything. I totally agree. But since 2008, we've had no meaningful growth in this country. Why would Andy Burnham be any different to Keir Starmer, to Rishi Sunak, to Liz Truss, to Boris Johnson, to David Cameron? It's the same. They all say the same thing. But since 2008, we've not done anything really.
We've got this one unique thing happening right now around artificial intelligence. And if you look at the US economy, and the reason it's growing well over 2% of their 3% and a bit growth is driven through an infrastructure build out. We have absolutely the opportunity to do the same thing here in the UK. People talk about power being expensive, but in my opinion, that's not top of the priority list. There is, for the first time in my business career, no shortage of capital, no shortage of demand. We've just got to get the supply part right in the UK and unlock data center growth, which in turn drives not just a build-out phase, but drives a long-term income stream for the UK. So we have this unique moment in time. If we grasp AI as an economy, we can see a similar level of growth that the US is experiencing.
But we have too expensive energy. I know you think that's important, but that is simply the case. And at the minute, we don't have the energy prices that would enable us to make that cost-effective, do we?
I think that the reality is energy is a long-term factor. There's no doubt about it, but it's energy availability rather than price, which is the determining factor right now. There is such a shortage of power in the world, and the challenges that we have on data center build out are replicated elsewhere. But if we can find a way through that, prioritize it as a national priority, then I do believe we've got this great opportunity ahead of us.
What about the argument? So you think AI can drive the economy of the future? What about in the short term, AI robbing people of their jobs and the chance to become taxpayers at all? When you look at what AI might do to the white-collar workforce, you must be seeing that in your businesses. As you automate more, you are going to make more people redundant. That seems to be a sort of necessary equation here. How does that affect the economy, even if you believe in the sort of macro argument that it's good for the economy as a whole?
I think it's a really key point you mentioned. We've got a charitable project underway at the moment looking at what are called knowledge workers, so those white-collar workers, and there's no doubt there is change afoot. We have enough time. There is a lot of inertia today in corporates in adopting AI because it's complicated. It's about re-engineering your business, not deploying it at all. As that inertia sort of builds, there will start to be some change, or as that inertia slows down, there'll start to be some change. So we've got this window of time, it's a couple of years, to make sure that we keep reskilling our people. We aren't doing enough as a country on that today. We've got to incentivise business, either through carrots or sticks, to retrain their people. But we have an obligation to our employees to get ahead of this, because there is change on the horizon.
But will people do that? Because I've been around various businesses, and you all have bottom lines, you all have profit targets, and if you can get rid of 20% of your workforce and hit your number, you're going to get rid of 20% of your workforce and hit your number. That strikes me as how businesses tend to operate.
Listen, businesses are beholden to their shareholders. Their job is to get the best return for those shareholders. So to some degree, you're right in that sentiment. But the reality is that this next change has a chance to substantially grow the economy, so growing that pie rather than just dividing it in a different way. If we can leverage that, then, and we can reskill those people, it's not, you can't stay as you are today. Today is the slowest day of our life in technology. Every day will get faster from this point. So unless we reskill people, they're not going to be in the position to benefit from those future jobs. So it is beholden, as I say, on both of us, either via tax credits or via a growth and skills levy. We've got to find a way to get businesses to retrain their people. I've
heard that line before, today's the slowest day of the rest of your life. Does that excite you? It depresses me, actually. It depresses me from a sort of social perspective. Does that excite you as a businessman, because things are going to get faster and more furious?
I think we're in this unprecedented period, and it does excite me, this period that we're in. We've got a real chance to transform our businesses, to transform the country, to cement our position globally as to where we sit from a London perspective, as an example. So I'm definitely in the optimistic camp on AI. That doesn't mean it's not going to be what you might call a jagged edge. So it's going to have some problems along the way. But net, if we run hard at it, rather than running away from it, it's definitely a positive for the country.
Before you go, I just want you to put your business hat on. We've been talking a lot about the Defence Investment Plan, and the idea of saying we're going to do this Defence Investment Plan and it'll cost 15 billion quid extra and 5 billion you just have to find later. Just as a pure businessman, if you were advising the government, is that an acceptable way to do business, where you say we've got 15 billion quid of investment, 5 billion is going to magically appear somewhere, good luck?
We don't have a particularly large defence business, but what I do hear from people I talk to in that world is it is very challenging to plan your own business if you're beholden on the MOD for your procurement. It's very difficult to plan your business affairs around decisions that are constantly moving left and are potentially unfunded. So I think it is really critical we get our defence position in place. I personally support war bonds. I think they could be a really novel initiative the government could deploy, either through tax-free interest or through inheritance tax-free returns. But we need to face the music on defence. If the government can't afford it in a traditional way, we need to start thinking outside of the box.
Really interesting stuff, Steve. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
That's Steve Rigby there, the CEO of Rigby Group. That's one of the UK's largest privately owned companies.
Really interesting to get into the mind of business leaders when they're looking at what's happening in this kind of turbulent moment of governmental change. But that last comment on war bonds, it's really worth just pausing on that for a moment, because it's something that has been suggested. The Liberal Democrats came on this programme and we talked about it at length with them about how it might work. It's being talked about in Labour circles as perhaps the holy grail answer. Keir Starmer used his speech on the Defence Investment Plan yesterday to rubbish them.
Said it was just borrowing by another name.
And it would make us less credible as an economy. But you now have someone very, very credible there, a business leader, somebody who invests a lot of money in this country, saying, actually, maybe they're worth another look. Is that something that Andy Burnham might well consider? Be interesting to see.
He must be considering it a bit sufficiently for Keir Starmer to
be considering it speedily this morning, won't he?
For
£5 billion gap he's got to fill.
Well, that's exactly the issue.